You're watching DX Recaps, the place where we break down movies fast, clear, and spoiler-packed. Whether you missed it, forgot it, or just want a quick refresh, we've got you covered. Let's get into the story. The story opens inside a high-security prison, where Officer Green is preparing to deliver a large sum of cash to a powerful inmate named Balam. Despite being incarcerated, Balam doesn't live like the others. He has a private, luxurious cell, personal bodyguards, and full control over his criminal empire. From behind these bars, he oversees a vast network involving narcotics, weapons, and human trafficking. Strangely, Balam chooses to remain in prison. It's the safest place for him. A fortress from which even his deadliest enemies can't reach him. Soon after, a group of new inmates is processed into the prison. Among them is Jack Stone, a former police officer accused of murdering a fellow cop and robbing a bank. As Jack is led to his cell, Officer Green intercepts him. Green recognizes him as someone who once locked up many of the prison's current residents. He gives Jack a brutal warning, reminding him that prison life won't be easy, especially for a cop with blood on his hands. We're then taken back to the events of the previous week. In a bold operation, Jack and a small team of trusted officers staged a fake bank heist, not for money, but to recover sensitive evidence that could expose corruption involving high-ranking officials in Balam's prison-based syndicate. After securing classified documents from the bank's safety deposit boxes, they were ambushed by fellow officers. A deadly shootout followed. Jack's entire crew was killed, and he barely managed to escape. While fleeing, Jack was confronted by another officer who revealed he was involved in the murder of Jack's wife. The confrontation turned deadly, and Jack leapt off a building with the man, killing him in the fall but miraculously surviving himself. He then took the evidence and hid it in the apartment of a reporter named Trisha, explaining the depth of the conspiracy and urging her to take it to the district attorney. Back in the present, Jack is assigned a cellmate named Silva. During lunch, he is approached by Samone, Balam's cousin, who demands protection money. Jack refuses. When Samone and his men try to assault him, Jack quickly turns the tables, overpowering them. As a result, Samone is caught and thrown into solitary confinement. Not long after, Jack is moved to a high-security cell, where he finds himself under surveillance. He has a video-linked confrontation with Balam, who threatens him and warns him to stay out of his affairs. Jack, however, remains defiant. That same night, 3 of Balam's enforcers sneak into Jack's cell to kill him, but Jack defeats them all, leaving Silva, his cellmate, unaware of the entire altercation. Meanwhile, Trisha is digging into the files Jack left behind. Her investigation confirms Jack's claims and reveals his true identity. The next day, she goes to the district attorney's office to present the evidence but becomes suspicious of the assistant, Mark, and chooses not to hand over the documents. Instead, she waits until she can speak directly with DA Johnson, who assures her of his support and urges her to stay in touch. Later, Trisha visits Jack in prison. He advises her to be cautious with the information and warns her that powerful people are watching. After she leaves, Jack is approached by another inmate named William, who warns him that messing with Balam could be fatal. Jack, unfazed, asks about Balam's exact location. William reveals that Balam's cell is so well hidden that even most guards don't know where it is. The scene then shifts to a women's prison, where 2 inmates get into a violent altercation. One of them, Elena, is taken away blindfolded. She's brought to Balam, who's seated in a secret chamber with Sohn and other male prisoners. Sohn has been extorting protection money without Balam's approval, and Elena had attacked one of Balam's favored inmates. Furious, Balam makes an announcement. He offers a $100,000 bounty to anyone who can kill Jack Stone. Soon after, Jack is ambushed again, this time while he's talking with William. Multiple inmates attack, but Jack and William manage to fight them off. William, impressed, begins to see Jack as more than just another prisoner. Meanwhile, Balam receives a disturbing phone call from District Attorney Johnson, who informs him that Trisha is in possession of evidence that could bring everything crashing down. Balam orders Johnson to eliminate her immediately and insists that Jack must be dead before the day is over. Later, while Jack is doing laundry, a group of corrupt prison guards, hoping to cash in on the bounty, launches a brutal attack. They beat him with batons, but Jack, refusing to give in, fights back with everything he has, ultimately defeating the guards and walking away from the confrontation battered, but still standing, Jack finds himself approached by another gang of inmates. Before they can strike, he tries to talk them down, warning that the bounty on his head isn't worth the pain they'll endure. He says splitting the money won't leave them much, barely enough to cover the cost of cracked ribs, fractured skulls, or collapsed lungs. His words make them rethink, and the group decides to walk away. Elsewhere, Trisha goes to see her friend Allison and confides everything she's uncovered about Balam, along with evidence that links dirty cops to his operation. Meanwhile, Elena tries to make amends with Kat, Balam's most favored female inmate, but Kat isn't having it. She punches Elena in the face. Elena pretends to be knocked out so the guards will escort her to the infirmary. Once the medical officer leaves, she picks her handcuffs using a paperclip, grabs some alcohol and medicine, and hides them in William's cleaning supplies. Then, she sneaks into a ventilation shaft, using a tool and a hand-drawn map to locate the CCTV control room. With William's guidance, she reaches the room and quietly returns to the infirmary just in time. At the same moment, Trisha visits Jack and tells him she knows who he really is. She asks why he murdered a fellow officer. Jack explains that Balam's men were responsible for killing his wife, and the officer he took down was one of them. Soon after, Jack finds out William is not actually a prisoner, he's an undercover cop. Shocked, Jack asks how long he's been undercover. William says it's been 6 months, and that his mission is to expose corrupt inmates and officials working for Balam. He also reveals that Elena is part of the operation, helping him gather evidence from inside. As they talk, a group of inmates suddenly attack them. A violent fight breaks out, and Jack ends up being thrown into solitary, blamed for starting the brawl. William, however, is summoned by Warden Blaine. Since Blaine has had run-ins with Balam's crew before, he tells William he'll need to pay more if he wants to continue operating inside the prison. Meanwhile, Trisha tries once more to speak with the district attorney, but the receptionist claims Johnson is swamped with back-to-back meetings. Mark approaches Trisha again, pressing her to hand over the evidence. Inside the prison, Balam gets a visit from his daughter. He's temporarily taken out of his cell to the visitation area. William spots this and signals Elena, it's time to put their plan into motion. Elena fakes passing out, and a guard takes her to the infirmary. Once there, she and William take down the guard. Elena heads straight to the surveillance room while William, now dressed as a correctional officer, moves toward the control center. Watching the monitors, Elena sees Balam being escorted out of the visitation area. At the same time, William unlocks Jack's cell in solitary. Jack knocks out a guard and changes into his uniform. Elena and William tell Jack they'll lead him to Balam's private quarters before Balam returns. Meanwhile, Blaine and some guards notice that someone has broken into the surveillance room. They try to break in, but Elena escapes through the air ducts. Knowing Balam won't be gone long, William triggers a prison-wide disturbance by unlocking all the cells. Mayhem follows as inmates pour into the halls, attacking guards who had abused them. Officer Green tries to flee the chaos but is intercepted by Jack, who shoves him into the path of angry prisoners. Amid the riots, William and Elena fend off assaults from other inmates while Jack moves closer to Balam. But Sohn steps in his way. A brutal fight begins. Even though Sohn stabs Jack in the stomach, Jack manages to overpower him and keeps going. Outside the prison, Allison is seen siding with District Attorney Johnson against Trisha. They plan to eliminate her. Just as Allison is about to shoot, Mark intervenes, revealing he's actually an undercover FBI agent. He's been posing as Johnson's assistant to take down corrupt government officials. Back inside, William overpowers Warden Blaine and his guards. "Sorry, man, it's just my job," he says. Finally, Jack reaches Balam. The two engage in a fierce hand-to-hand battle. Balam gets the upper hand, knocking Jack to the floor. As Jack lies in pain, memories of his wife's death fuel him. He gathers his strength and turns the tables, ultimately defeating Balam and avenging his wife. Shortly after, a SWAT team storms in and regains control of the prison. With the dust settling, William introduces Jack to Elena and tells them both that his superiors appreciate their help in dismantling Balam's criminal network from the inside out. Jack thanks them for their support in helping him get justice. In the aftermath, the FBI arrests every corrupt official and officer linked to Balam's empire. The film ends with Jack being taken into custody by William, who promises that his release is only a matter of time. And that's a wrap on today's recap. If you enjoyed the ride, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss a plot twist. Got a movie you want recapped? Drop it in the comments below. This is DX Recaps. See you in the next one.